listen to this podcast.
Hello, and welcome to I Am the Podman, a Beatles podcast review. As you may have guessed, I am the Podman.
No, you're not,
said little Nicola. I Am the Podman will take a magical look at podcasts about the Beatles and review them for accuracy, production value, and entertainment value, and then answer the question, is this podcast worth listening to? As always, I'm recording in studio number 2 at Shabby Road Studios. Number 2, number 2, number 2. Which when turned back to front, sounds suspiciously like "Turn me on, Podman. Turn me on, Podman. Turn me on, Podman." And yes, I know that would sound much better in stereo, but George Martin insists that the first 4 podcasts be in mono. Thank you for listening, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, preferably before you listen to the show. Thanks again for listening. A splendid time is guaranteed for all.
Episode 3, with the Podman.
So let's talk about a generally controversial subject, artificial intelligence. Simply put, and straight off of Wikipedia, artificial intelligence is the intelligence of machines or software. This is as opposed to the intelligence of humans or other animals. It's a field of study in computer science that develops and studies intelligent machines. The first person to conduct substantial research in this field was Alan Turing. Some of you may have seen the movie about his work deciphering the Ultra Machine, The Imitation Game. The movie starred Keira Knightley and apparently a bunch of other people from 2014. In music, software has been developed which uses AI to produce music. A feature is the ability of an AI algorithm to learn based on data that has been inputted to output like or altered music based on that data. This was so much of a tizzy among the crowd in Washington. People who don't have the intellect to explain or even understand even the first thing about artificial intelligence. But since they did watch a Terminator movie 40 years ago,
where were you at 2:14 Eastern Standard Time on August 29th, 1997?
they just knew they had to get involved and earn our undying gratitude. Heck, in a strongly worded executive order, the feeble-minded executive demanded that if you develop certain types of AI models, you should maybe tell someone in the government about it? Immediately, sort of. And no bias or discrimination in AI models, or else something. So how does all this apply to the Beatles? On June 13th, 2023, during an interview on BBC Radio 4 to promote Eye of the Storm, interviewer Martha Carney asked Paul this.
And what do you think about efforts that are being made through technology, through artificial intelligence, to recreate the early Beatles, making your voice sound younger, bringing those voices back, well, from the grave, really?
Mm. Well, it's a very interesting thing, you know. It's something we're all sort of tackling at the moment, you know, and trying to deal with what's it mean, you know. yeah, people will. I don't hear that much because I'm not on the internet that much. But people will say to me, "Oh yeah, there's a track where John's singing one of my songs," and it isn't. It's just AI, So all of that is kind of scary, but exciting because it's the future. And we were able to use that kind of thing when Peter Jackson did the film Get Back, where it was us making the Let It Be album. And he was able to extricate John's voice from a ropey little bit of cassette where it had John's voice and a piano. He could separate them with AI. They tell the machine, that's a voice, this is a guitar, lose the guitar. And he did that. So it has great uses. So when we came to make what will be the last Beatles record, it was a demo that John had that we worked on, and we've just finished it up. It'll be released this year. We were able to take John's voice and get it pure through this AI, so that then we could mix the record as you would normally do. So it gives you some sort of leeway. So there's a good side to it, and then a scary side, and we'll just have to see where that leads.
And the world went crazy. Stupid, uninformed people everywhere just naturally assumed that AI would be used to artificially reproduce John's voice, and everyone was talking about it. Paul, accidentally or not, had achieved a huge media coup. He rode the buzz for over a week before clarifying, really just explaining, or mansplaining, in a tweet, "It's all real, and we all play on it. Nothing's been artificially or synthetically produced." While the veracity of that statement can be argued, it only softened the reaction. But now, 8 months later, I still see some references to fake Beatles. Among the Beatles community, I saw and heard some very dismissive comments about AI and how hokey it was. John duetting with Elvis on You'll Never Walk Alone, or the Beatles doing We Are the World with a preamble from John hawking charity computers. But I heard a song that I had heard many times before, but instead of it being sung by a 70-year-old man with a raspy voice, a song about his new wife, this song was sung by a much younger man about a very different relationship.
Don't look at me, it's way too soon to see what's gonna be. Don't look at me. All my life I never knew what I could be, what I could do. Then we were new. Ooh. You came along and made my life a song. One lucky day you came along. Just in time, while I was searching for love, you came along and we were new. We can do what we want, we can live as we choose. You see, there's no guarantee, we've got nothing to lose. Go look at me, I can't deny the truth. It's plain to see, don't look at me. All my life, I never knew what I could be, what I could do. Then we were new. We can do what we want, we can live as we choose. You see, there's no guarantee, we've got nothing to lose. Don't look at me, it's way too soon to see what's gonna be. Don't look at me. All my life I never knew what I could be, what I could do. Then we were new. Then we were new.
Wow. It would be November 2nd, 2023 before I had such an emotional reaction to a song. But it didn't stop there. Some AI made me laugh.
Ring, 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 banana phone. Ring, 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 banana phone. I've got this feeling so appealing for us to get together and sing, sing. Ring, 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 banana phone. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding, banana phone. It grows in bunches. I've got my hunches. It's the best, beats the rest. Cellular, modular, interactive, modular. Ring, 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 banana phone. Oh, 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 oh. Ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, ping, banana phone. It's nobody.
Some sounded like the real Ruddles.
Time goes by, as we all know, naturally. People come and people go, naturally. Let's be natural. Ever since the world began, let's be natural. Every woman, every man, let's be natural. I've followed nature's plan, let's be natural. Oh yeah. Stars are in the sky. Many years from now, when your grandchildren climb up on your knee, you may be quite astonished to see how many channels they can change on TV. When some old film in black and white comes on and there you are up on the screen.
Some uncovered lingual skills I never knew existed.
Tell me, when will you be mine? Tell me cuando, cuando, cuando we can share a love divine. Please don't make me wait again. When will you say yes to me? Tell me cuando, cuando, cuando you mean happiness to me. Cuando era un chiquillo, qué alegría, jugando a la guerra, noche y día, saltando una verja, verte a ti, y así, en tus ojos, algo nuevo descubrir. Las rosas decían que eras mía y un gato me hacía compañía. Desde que me dejaste, yo no sé por qué.
And some came from a voice we are so desperate to hear again.
Down 97.9. melody, it's never ever time. Oh, night wire right out of the trees. You and I should listen. John Dodge sleeping like a son. And lies more than lights go out and I can be seen. Tides that I tried to swim against put me down upon my knees. Oh, I beg and please, singing, come out of things unsaid. Shoot an apple off my head and a trouble that can be named. A tiger's waiting to be tamed, singing. Confusion never stops, closing walls and ticking clocks. Gonna come back and take you home. I could not stop the team now knows.
And some from a voice made new.
It was written that I would love you from the moment I opened my eyes. And the morning when I first saw you gave me life under chemical skies. I will hold you for as long as you like. I'll hold you for the rest of my life. Always looking for ways.
We hear the drummer with his friend Harry.
In my arrow, straighter than narrow road. Wherever we go, everyone knows it's me and my arrow. Me and my arrow, taking the high road.
And we can travel through time.
I know it's true. It's all because of you. And if I make it through, it's all because of you. And now and then, if we must start again, well, we will know for sure that I will love you. All my little plans and schemes lost like some forgotten dream. Seems that all I really was doing was waiting for you. Just like little girls and boys playing with the little toys. Seems that all we really were doing was waiting for love. exactly where my life will go. Seems that all I really was doing was waiting for love.
And we hear what surely would have been an eternal classic. But most of all, we get to hear what it would have sounded like if the cheering never ended. let's take a look at Martin Cabell's fabulous podcast, Pods Like Us. Take it away, Paul.
What do you do? No one else can dance like you. So what's all of us? There ain't nobody spies like us. Hey, what do you say? Someone took your plans away. So what's all of us? There ain't nobody spies like us. Hey, don't feel afraid of an undercover raid. Let's
Marty to his friends, started the podcast in October of 2020. As of 2024, he has over 200 episodes and commentaries, which Marv calls the Pod Files and his podcast Pods We Love. Today I'll be looking at Marv's February 9th, 2023 episode, in which he interviews the always fascinating Alan Kozinn.
Please, Spock, do me a favor. And don't say it's fascinating. No. But it is interesting.
Now, before I talk about Alan Kozinn, I should mention that reviewing a podcast like Pods Like Us is a first on the Podman. Why?
And you may ask yourself...
Well, while Marv is obviously a huge and very knowledgeable Beatles fan, Pods Like Us is not strictly a Beatles podcast. Actually, Pods Like Us is a podcast about podcasts. I wish I had thought of that. So Marv interviews all manner of podcasters on all different subjects. It is the quintessential podcast on podcasts. I haven't counted them all up, but just eyeballing it, it seems to me that about 20% of Marv's podcasts are on the Beatles or Beatle-related. But really, if you come for the Beatles, you need to stay for the rest. I promise I won't review another non-Beatles-only podcast for a really long time. In fact, by my fake Rolex, it seems like it will be in about 30 minutes. So on to Alan Kozinn. Full disclosure here, I'm a Kozinn fan. I think Alan's musical analysis of any musical style is always well thought out, supported by examples and intellect. I'm always entertained when Alan is the guest on a podcast, and this episode of Pods Like Us is no exception. Marv gives a bit about Alan's various credits. By the way, where can I get Alan's ebook, You've Got That Something? And talks to Alan about his education and how he got into music journalism. Alan said the New York Times published his first piece in 1977. He said working for the New York Times opened a lot of doors. He worked for the Times until 2014. Kozinn relates that while he was the New York Times classical critic, the Times pop critic, John Pareles, asked Alan to write reviews for the Beatles CDs because of his extensive Beatles knowledge when the CDs were released back in 1987. Kozinn says, quote, "That's when I basically became the Beatles desk at the New York Times," end quote. He says that several years later, while giving a talk at the Juilliard, John Pareles said, "The New York Times is the only newspaper in the country to have a dedicated Beatles desk, and it's in the classical music department." The gents talk about the books that Alan has written, 8 of them. Marv mentions that Alan's book on the Beatles for Phaidon Press is one that he quite likes. Alan says that when that was written, it was for a series of 20th century composer biographies. Alan says that all the other books in that series were classical composers, but after the Beatles' book's success, Phaidon added non-classical composers to that series. They then get to the real meat and potatoes, Alan's book, The McCartney Legacy, by Alan and Adrian Sinclair. They start by discussing Kozinn's fantastic foreword for McCartney Legacy, as well written as one would expect, and the theory that many of Paul's oft-repeated anecdotes, often not reality-based, are spoken by his public performing persona. Alan says that Paul often tells idealized anecdotes in that they have some stylistic or entertainment value. Alan says that in his opinion, Paul views his public persona as a separate entity for his true self. It would seem to me that that may be a possible explanation for Paul's relative, in the world of famous rock stars, level-headedness and mostly very positive reputation. But what do I know? It's not like I'm a psychologist or anything. Marv points out that Paul is a bit of a creative sponge in that he learned a lot from John Lennon, that was a two-way street, but Marv also states that he thinks Paul learned a great deal from Denny Laine. Alan mentions how valuable Denny Seiwell was to he and Adrian and to the book, McCartney Legacy. Both Marv and Alan think that Red Rose Speedway would have been a much better double album. The Podman can agree. The guys talk about the evolution of Wings and the strange way the band was put together, and the reasons for that. Alan sheds a great deal of light on Paul's efforts to make good with the band members for their financial hardships during the 1970s. In a very telling anecdote, Alan tells of the time he asked Paul about the fact that to provide their fans with the greatest value, the Beatles had a policy of not including singles and tracks on albums. Alan asked Paul why he seems to have 180'd from that by putting certain songs only on cassette or as a B-side only in BF Egypt station. Paul replied that the Beatles could tell the record company weasels to F off. Paul, on the other hand, realizes that he doesn't have the same hand that the Beatles had and must consider what the record company wants. Alan discusses Paul's very sophisticated knowledge and taste in classical music. The McCartney Legacy is discussed, as are the roles of Alan Kozinn and Adrian Sinclair in writing the book. Then Marty asked Alan about his experience in podcasting. After sharing some cute stories, the gentlemen wrap up what was a terrific podcast. So first, a brief word about the McCartney Legacy. I think that Kozinn and Sinclair have put together an exceptional tome, and I look forward to future volumes. As of this recording, the hardcover is $15.34 on Jeff Bezos' site. So really, it's a must-add to your collection. Yes, the print is painfully small, and hopefully someone will explain the strawberries. But other than that. Now, Pods Like Us. What is there to add I haven't already said? I've listened to a good number of these episodes, and not just the Beatles-related ones, and I find the cast to be entertaining even if the topic is one in which I have little or no interest. Why, you ask? Of course, anyone who's listened to the podcast will know that the answer is Marvin Kibel. Marv always treats his guests with respect, and it often feels like he's chatting with an old friend. So the Podman, I do love referring to myself in the third person, highly recommends Pods Like Us. And hey, expand your horizons. Don't just listen to the Beatles episodes. Here's a little section I like to call Media City.
Well, I've been Meat City to see for myself. Well, I've been Meat City to see for myself. Been Meat City.
This episode is a slightly different Media City. In this episode, I'll be looking at a live event. Last night, January 11th, 2024, I attended the Jim Irsay Collection at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles. This free event featured Jim Irsay's huge collection of music, sports, and historical memorabilia, and a concert by the Jim Irsay Collection featuring an excellent lineup of musicians, including the amazing Kenny Wayne Shepherd on guitar, R.E.M's Mike Mills on bass, Kenny Aronoff, who has played with Paul and Ringo, on drums, and several other great musicians. Guest musicians that night included Buddy Guy, Ann Wilson, Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon, Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top, and Peter Wolf of the Jay Giles Band. For me, the musical highlight was the performance of Pink Floyd's Have a Cigar and Comfortably Numb, played by Kenny Wayne Shepherd on the famous Black Strat, the Stratocaster formerly owned by Dave Gilmour and played on those records. Gilmour also played the Black Strat at the Pink Floyd reunion at Live 8 in 2005. The guitar was purchased at a charity auction in 2018 by Irsay for almost $4 million. Prior to the performance, Kenny Wade Shepherd announced that Jim Irsay believes that unlike a painting or another work of art, his collection of musical instruments is alive and can still create great music. In any case, hearing the solo from Comfortably Numb played on the guitar from the actual recording made 45 years ago was a fantastic experience. I don't want to spend too much time talking about Jim Irsay. Apparently, he usually starts the concerts off by singing a couple of numbers with the band. Unfortunately, he missed this concert as he's been hospitalized with a severe respiratory illness. I wish him a speedy recovery, and I'm sure he's getting the quality of medical attention that most of us can only dream of. Let's get to the real reason we're all here, and truth be told, the reason I attended the event. Irsay made the news in 2015 when he paid $2.2 million for Ringo's 1963 Ludwig Oyster Black Pearl three-piece drum set, used by the Beatles during their 1963 European tour. Beatles guitars in the collection include John's Gretsch 6120, used on Paperback Writer and later gifted to Ringo, George's Gibson 56, which was gifted to Pete Ham. The collection also included Paul's handwritten lyrics to Hey Jude, the second greatest song of all time. Ringo's bass drumhead used on the first Ed Sullivan Show. Also, sadly, Paul's 1970 Beatles breakup affidavit is in the collection with handwritten comments on the side by John. Perhaps the most beautiful item is John's 1872 John Broadwood and Sons upright piano. This was purchased by John in 1966 and was his home composing piano. The piano has an ebonized case and an elaborate gilt inlay. The upper and lower fretboards feature ornate fretwork highlighted by scarlet backing cloths. Very visually striking. When John moved to Tittenhurst Park in 1968, this piano came with him. Eventually, when he moved to the United States, he gave the piano to a friend, but not before he had a plaque affixed to it that read,
"On this piano was written, A Day in the Life, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Good Morning, being for the benefit of Mr. Kite and many others, John Lennon, 1971.
Among other items were Dylan's 1964 Strat used during his July 25th, 1965 performance at the Newport Folk Festival. I yelled, "Traitor!" as I walked past, but hey, it's LA. No one reacted as if they knew what the crazy man was talking about. Can I recommend the Jim Irsay collection? Sure, it does speak to the ego of a guy who inherited an NFL team when his dad passed, but I give him a pass. Get it? On that. He, at great personal expense, purchased these items, but also, at great personal expense, shares them with all of us. Much cooler than the fat cats who buy this stuff and squirrel it away never to be seen again. If the Jim Irsay collection comes to your town, you should definitely check it out. Heck, I can even sell you a ticket. So did I say I wouldn't review another podcast that wasn't solely about the Beatles? Well, here's another one. I was noticing that in my search for Beatles podcasts, something called The Kimmer Show kept coming up. So since the November 2nd podcast said it was about Now and Then, I decided to take one for the team and give it a listen. Well, it turns out that The Kimmer Show isn't actually a podcast at all. It's a radio show on 106.3 XTRA in Atlanta. The show is then uploaded on a daily basis on podcast platforms. The show is 3 hours long, and apparently they have almost 800 episodes. The host is Kimmer, and he has two sidekicks, Pete, a mostly sports guy, and Flounder, who seems to be more technically oriented. Pretty standard evening drive time fare. The show itself is pretty right of center, and the topics are very sports heavy. Kimmer's style kind of reminds me of a Don Imus type delivery, speaking fast in partial sentences in a gravelly voice. Oh, I've got to get a new wallet. Oh, pens don't last as long as they used to. I can't find my receipt to Home Depot, and these speakers are just not very good. That sort of thing. They also laugh hysterically a great deal of the time. Here's how the show starts. I'm usually not sure what they're laughing at. So why am I reviewing this podcast on I Am the Podman? Well, because not only is this MAGA-loving podcast ever at a loss to come up with derogatory terms for that Brandon fellow, but more importantly, this podcast radio show was very Beatles-heavy in content. So to begin with, they were playing the greatest songs that turned 60 this year. They talk about AI, which kind of leads to Now and Then. They play the song all the way through, well, except for cutting off the count-in and the first few notes. Then they come back with, now sure, anyone listening to this can play Spot the Errors, but it's hard for me to diss anyone who gets so choked up over Now and Then. On the video cast, it's very clear that Kimmer was in tears. They return from their commercial break to this. And for the next 2.5 hours, the Beatles get numerous mentions. The remainder of the show was mostly political commentary and baseball. Since the Podman is an ice hockey guy, and these Atlanta guys don't even mention the Flames or the Thrashers once, I lost interest. Because they loved Now and Then so much, they ended the show by playing it again in its entirety to close the show. And yes, this time they played the count-in as well. So what's the verdict? Well, since the Kimmer Show isn't really a podcast and certainly isn't a Beatles podcast, I don't really think it falls into the strict requirements of this show. Why then did I include it on this podcast? Because I spent 3 hours of my life listening to it. And I'll never get that 3 hours back. Thank you for listening to I Am the Podman, a Beatles podcast review. I hope you have enjoyed the show. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you have a Beatles-related podcast that you would like me to review, please feel free to email me at iamthepodman@gmail.com. That's iamthepodman@gmail.com. Now it's time to say goodnight. Peace and love. Imagine.